worded like that. Who's at your table?
Yeah, who's at your round table?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Power Up Roundtable discussion, man. We're here to hit you in the mouth with some real good content, man. This one we're talking about who's at your round table, man. And I'm Keith Withrow.
Gary Rambo.
Stanley Autry.
Joe Verdun.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to us and support us. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Leave comments. Let us know what you think about what we're talking about. Make some suggestions as to what we should talk about next. Please give us some feedback. Let us know what's going on with that, okay? And, you know, I think this is going to be a really powerful message for especially people that have, that are raising children. And I can speak on behalf of little boys because I was, of course, once a little boy, and I was very attentive as to who my parents had around, and the adult males. I would pay very close attention as to what they did, how they did it, what their thought process was, what their work ethic was. And you know what? As I'm an adult and I look back on those times, I realized how influential that was. And actually what brings all this about is just recently had a funeral of a really close friend of the family, and I'm actually going to dedicate this show to brother Larry Shepard and the Shepard family, man. You know, we're praying for you guys, but he was a good guy. He was a really good guy. He was a close friend of my dad and my mom's. You know, when we went to memorialize and we went to the funeral the other day, afterwards my dad and all of us was just talking, and I was just telling everybody that I wanted to say publicly to my father, hey, thank you. You know, thank you for actually allowing us to have, for me to have a good representation of what males look like, which helped to mold me. You know, of course, now everybody's not perfect. You know, everybody's got their own stuff they got going on. But, you know, I could get enough from each one of those men to let me know, you know, what some of the responsibilities were as I became an adult. What am I supposed to be doing? You know, like we always say, man, like, what are we doing? You know?
That's right.
So I kind of knew what to do. You know, of course, I made my mistakes along the way too, but I just think this would be a powerful episode for those of you all, especially the ones that are raising kids, to take accountability and take inventory as to who's in close proximity at your round table. Who's speaking in your ear? You know, what are their beliefs? What kind of beliefs do they have? Like you know, we are believers here. Of course, you guys know on the show, we're believers. Yeah. It's a spiritually based show. We all Christian men here. We're believers. You know, that's the baseline of what we're doing here. And every parent should be very, very attentive to as to who's around, you know, in close proximity to your family or your children. We always talk about like unresolved hurt, right?
Yeah.
That comes up in almost every episode. And for the ones who don't know, who haven't seen it on the show, unresolved hurt, you know, it's a term that I use when it comes to like, you know, something that happened to you at some point in your life that was never resolved, that was never treated, that was never dealt with properly, it never brought closure to, almost like a wound where you have a scab on it, but it won't completely heal, and you keep ripping it off, and it can be ripped off at any time. That's the best way I can describe the unresolved hurt. Well, guess what? You know, a lot of what I found is, and we all, you know, have seen where people are damaged from their childhoods and somewhere along in their life, because a lot of times somebody didn't take correct accountability for who was in close proximity, and guess what? Inappropriate behavior goes on. with girls and boys. People allowed to be, usually it's going to be family and family friends, people that are close that have access to do damage, which leaves scarring, which creates that what? Unresolved hurt.
That's right.
That doesn't get dealt with in most cases, especially like in our culture. A lot of times, back in the day, we wouldn't get counseling, and a lot of times it would never even be told to the parents anyway, because everybody was usually too afraid or too embarrassed to even talk about it. So this is one of the things that can happen when you have the wrong people around your table.
Yeah, what's interesting is that when these events occur, that we're speaking of, inappropriate, behavior,
Right.
Where it may have happened with an adult or a close friend or something, and as it relates to a child. It's when that happens, something like that happens, the event occurs, the unresolved hurt, happens as a result. And it becomes like you said, a scar that's there. Can be there for a lifetime.
Yes.
Depending on, what kind of therapy occurs, what kind of spiritual healing, occurs or doesn't occur.
Right.
So, it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons why I thought about the power of man, is because there were so many men, women were saying they couldn't meet quality men, and quality men are saying they can't meet quality women, and because everybody's walking around with all this baggage, and the baggage hasn't been dealt with. Yeah. So if we get people that's going into marrying as adults, they in their 30s and 40s, and you got people just walking around with all this unresolved hurt for all of these years, unattended to. Man, they're a mess by the time. Could be a beautiful person, not just in looks, but inside as well. But because they're so scarred, they can't have a successful relationship, a long-lasting relationship. And again, I always talk about the quality of life that I think God designed for you to have. I think that sometimes people just don't even see the quality of life that I think they deserve because of this stuff. But guess what? All of this can be controlled sometimes just by taking an assessment of who's in close proximity to your people.
Also what that requires. If you're having to take an assessment, that means you got to look in the mirror
as well. Yeah.
Right? Because you got to look in the mirror and say, okay, these are really the people I've been around.
Right.
What are they really about, like you said?
Right.
What do they believe? What are they into? What are their habits?
Right.
You're having to really look at them and also look at yourself like, man, what am I doing in this situation?
Right.
How am I really contributing to this?
Right.
So a lot of times, really, that's the hardest thing. It's easy to point the finger at somebody else, right? But the hardest thing, I believe, is to say, man, this is really where I fell short.
Right. Because I always say, from what you were saying earlier, Keith, that for a child, parents get a chance to influence them, in my belief, very heavy from 0 to 8 years of age. You still could be their hero somewhat from 8 to 10, but somewhere after 10, they start looking out elsewhere and start looking around them and seeing the popular kids in school and what's happening. Right. So even if you're looking at your child, you like you're beautiful, daughter, or you're looking at your son, you like you're strong, you're smart. But they seeing someone else get so-called edified or more popular, whatever in school, they gonna believe that. And a lot of times, if you then are able to surround yourself around the right kind of friends, that you're able to almost somewhat raise each other.
Right.
Because your parents have given you a baseline, but then you have kids that also can lean on each other.
Right.
You do your homework, I'm gonna do my homework. You getting straight A's, but I want to get straight A's too. Right. You playing basketball, football, and you being successful in that. You my best friend. I want to do that too, the same way that you two are.
Right.
So it's kind of where when you get around the right kind of group, you'll succeed together because you push each other up.
Yes,
Same way you can push each other down.
that's right.
I've had, people in my life that have had those kind of experiences where they chose the wrong friends. They had friends that weren't going to school, dropping out.
Right.
And even though the kid was smart, they were hanging with these friends. They was missing too many classes.
That's right.
And to their surprise, by the end of the year, they flunked the grade, not because of grades,
Right.
because they was being looked at it going to an honor school,
Right.
but because of attendance.
Right.
You hanging with the wrong crowd. And it could be just that simple, that because you picking the wrong friends and the parents did everything they thought they were supposed to do, but at some point as young people, you can pick friends that could be the wrong kind of crowd. And it's the same way as adults. You can pick the wrong kind of crowd. When we created our Power Up Men's group, it allowed men to come and feel like they had a space to let it out.
Yes. Right.
To be vulnerable.
That's right.
And have other men that's willing to say, hey brother, you need to cry.
Right.
Yeah.
You need a hug with 2 arms,
No judge.
you can get that in here.
No judge.
And it's like they been out in the world and feel like, yo, if I do that, I'm showing a sign of weakness, that I'm showing a sign of, I can't be this way, or some woman gonna try to bash me to be like, what kind of man are you that you crying or that you complaining about the work that's on your back or anything like that, not knowing that, hey, we understand where you're coming from.
That's right.
And we're going to try to give you some kind of help or deliverance to understand how to go forward dealing with that.
That's right.
So it never stops in our life where we have to evaluate ourselves, evaluate the people that we have around us, and if they still going in the direction that we're trying to go in, spiritually, financially, in all aspects, because at some point they may just been good for a season. I'm fortunate. I'm 43 years old, but my oldest friend is been my friend for 40 years.
Right.
And Ram know, like, when I turned 40, God gave me an idea just to be like, you've been in the top 40 under 40, so-called, with the school. How about you think about the 40 male influences in your life and ask them just to jot down something when they met you or how they feel or whatever about you, just whatever comes to their mind.
Right.
And you was in there and 39 other men was in there from whenever I met them. And then when I got it back and I looked at it, I was like, wow, the person that I known the least here, I still known them for over 15 years of a 40-year life.
Wow.
And
It's highly influential.
none of them were kin to me.
Right.
No blood. I didn't want any relatives. I wanted generally people that I so-called selected, that God so-called put in my life.
Right.
And then I accepted that relationship.
Right.
And for whatever reason, it either lasted 40 years, 30 years, 25 years. We known each other since 2003.
That was Chambers Crossing right there.
19 years.
19 years right here.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? And it's like, and look what we're doing here.
I didn't realize it's been that long.
You see what I'm saying? So when we say, like, look around you and pick who's at your round table carefully, it's like that's exactly what's going on. The reason why we have a 17-year relationship is because we still are common in what we believe and what we're doing and how we attacking life, God, our finances, our family. Like, what we're doing still makes sense for both of us. So when we need to bend on each other, pull each other's ear, he trusts what I say to him and what he says to me, and vice versa. And that's what you all need to be able to do at home, is be able to make sure you got those people that you feel like, yo, if you make sense in my life and I make sense in yours, I ain't letting you go.
Right.
Well, part of that, Stan, is like at this table, being around people that you are equally yoked with.
That's right.
Right.
Like, we have something in common.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the sanctity of our beliefs is what gives us strength. See, we all believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, first of all.
That's right.
I could trust anybody in my family, whether they're my granddaughter or whether they're one of the elders, with any one of you. Because at this round table, we're equally yoked.
Right.
But see, everybody don't do that when they consider the people that they are engaging with. You don't try to do a character search on people in your family.
Right.
You just assume that they're okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But everything that looks okay is not necessarily okay.
That's
Right.
right.
And you can find that you have swayed your entire family by bringing just a few individuals who should not be at that table at all,
Right.
who might have got there by inheritance
Right.
or by whatever means, friendship, but their thought process might be scorned.
Right.
And so you have to be there as a man, as a protector, to protect. Not necessarily, you can't protect everybody because you can't be every place at all time. But you got to be able to protect the individuals that's in your circles. And you do that by having certain people in your round table who's got your back, who's looking over your shoulder. See, if one of us have a problem, I'm sure one of y'all are going to be, and then once it get to one, it spreads to the people that's around your round table.
Yeah.
And so when you approach it, oh man, how you doing, man? You're making it through it.
Yeah.
If somebody in my family has a problem and one of y'all happen to see it, you would enlighten me.
Yes.
Right.
Because you're part of my round table. You got my back.
That's right.
I depend on you guys having my back.
That's right.
Not just in, watching what our family doing, but prayer partners too.
Yeah.
That's
You
right.
see what? We pray together.
Yeah.
We prayed before we started this round table discussion.
Yeah,
That's
cover
right.
each other.
We
Yeah.
asked the Lord to guide us
Yes.
in our words and our thoughts.
That's
That's
right.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
That's right.
That's right. And that's one thing here recently, just in our current world, in this culture that unfortunately it seems like they gotten away from, which is the sense of community.
That's right.
Yeah.
And community was huge just in trying to protect the child,
That's right.
but also in trying to help each other raise future citizens, future civilians
That's right.
that's going to be productive in this country. And now we're at a place in where everyone want to isolate in the sense of not being able to share parenting over your child. Even the teachers can't
Yeah.
do much with someone's child because you don't touch my child, you don't talk to
say
my
nothing.
child
That's right.
any type of way.
That's right.
But for all of us, no matter how young this side is, we was still in school, and where
Right.
Yeah.
if you got in trouble in school,
Yeah.
you gonna get in trouble at home.
That's right.
Right.
If you got in trouble with the neighbor, you gonna get in trouble at home.
That's right.
So it took a village to raise a
That's
child.
right. That's right.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
so everybody in the
repercussions.
neighborhood has something to do
Right.
with me being reared.
Correct.
And Lord forbid is the neighbor call my house. Oh, back then it was like corporal punishment, man.
Right,
I'm not worried about the neighbor. I could take their lick. When I got home, I'm going to get it more than I ever got it before.
Correct.
Because the neighbor had to intervene. The
Right.
church had to intervene.
Right.
I'd be praying at church, sister, please don't tell my mother I was chewing gum.
Right.
Because I know that the sister ain't my concerns.
Right.
Because I'm going to be, that round table was about strict discipline.
Yeah.
Right.
Now they rewarding people for, adversary type behavior.
Yeah.
Just the other day, Keith called me and he was like, can you believe that a guy get reprimanded for praying after a football game?
Yeah, for his team, right.
Don't you think you need to pray that nobody got hurt or more? And then you made a comparison about that just
What right now, what is right is
Is
wrong,
wrong.
and what is
Wrong
wrong
is right.
is right.
Yep, that's right.
We're talking, not necessarily what I may think as an individual, or you may think, or what your opinion may be. We're talking about what's written in
Correct.
the word.
Right.
And there are things that are going on now that basically is just totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the totally wrong stuff is being amplified and it's being shown to everybody for all to see
And glorified.
and glorified. But then something that's decent and in order is wrong. And
Correct.
but this is all revelation.
That's it.
It is.
This is revelation.
That's what this
Yes,
I
is.
mean,
Yes, it is.
this
It's
shouldn't
all
be
written.
this shouldn't be a big surprise. If anybody's curious to figure it out, just
It's
if you
already
don't
in
have the
there.
time to read this, go to audiobook, go download the app, just go to the Revelation, just listen. And you use the NLT version or something that's a little easier to understand. But it's all there.
To be
It's all
continued,
there. I mean,
to
it's
be
not-
continued. It's getting deep now. Who's at your round table? You can leave a comment below. We'll be back next week with part 2 of this topic. If you're new to the channel, remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. See you next week.